In terms of CPU performance, the following are three of the most common factors which can affect the CPU's performance. You've got clock speed, processor cores, and the type and size of memory. Now, one of these could be unbelievably brilliant, and you might have another one or two of them not so good. I'd always try and think of the comparison. Let's say you went to Sky TV and you bought the most unbelievable package you could, Sky Q, that had ultra high definition picture, and you're paying €150 a year for it. There's no good in getting that if you haven't got the telly with those capabilities to watch it on. That it just won't be able to, you won't be able to get that brilliant quality in pictures even though you're paying for it. So it's kind of working hand in hand. Sometimes if one is better than another, it doesn't ultimately mean that your whole computer system is going to be improved, although there's a good chance it will have some benefits. So if we look here at this little diagram, factors affecting CPU performance, so you've got the clock speed, and there's cycles per second measured in hertz, and 1 hertz kind of indicates 1 cycle, which indicates 1 instruction is executed per second. But modern computers have up to 3, 4, 5 gigahertz per second, which means 5 billion clock cycles per second are executed. The number of cores, so what that means is how many processors are linked together on a single chip. So the last couple of years has seen dual core processors become commonplace, where you have 2 chips kind of linked together. And again, when you start maybe going more than that, I'm not too sure whether that's going to lead to, but maybe there's only so much a computer can do. And then another factor that's affecting CPU performance is memory, and particularly cache size. Cache is built in to the CPU processor, it's on the CPU, and it's super fast working memory. The stuff that you're working on instantaneously is kept in your cache. So as we said about processor speed here, 1 cycle per second, that is 1 hertz, is 1 instruction carried out each second. So you're not going to get too much done if you can only carry out 1 instruction per second, like fetch, 1 instruction, decode, execute, store. That's like 4 or 5 seconds there. I've only carried out like 1 particular instruction in total with the fetch, decode, execute, and store. But kilohertz is 1,000 cycles per second. Then you've got 1 megahertz, which is actually made up of 1,000 kilohertz. And 1 megahertz is 1 million cycles per second. And 1 gigahertz is made up of 1,000 megahertz, which is 1 billion cycles per second. And most modern computers have 3, 4, 5 gigahertz, which is 3 billion, 4 billion, 5 billion cycles per second. Or approximately, because it's actually 1,240,000,000 cycles per second. Multi-core processors, so a dual-core processor has 2 processors in the same integrated circuit linked together. It's kind of considered like a sandwich nearly. The top slice of bread and the bottom slice of bread joined together by the stuff in the middle. So a dual-core processor is twice the power, but does not always perform twice as fast, because the software may not be able to take full advantage of both processors. And again, going back to your idea of buying the Sky TV package, you know, you might have everything bought and paid for and available to use, but if you haven't got the telly to watch it on, you're not going to take full advantage of it. Cache is a small amount of very fast, expensive memory in the CPU, and this is built into the CPU. You can't add any more cache really, or look, maybe if you're good enough you can, but it can be accessed faster than regular main memory. It's right there, it's instantaneous. And here is the levels of cache memory. There are different levels of cache. Level 1 is extremely fast but small and located very close to the processor. Level 2 is fairly fast, well, it is still very fast, medium sized and located close to processor but not as close as level 1. Level 3 then is commonplace in dual core processors, although you still may not see it in dual core processors, but it's large and located close to RAM. So here's a bit of a hierarchy going on here, where you have stuff like the CPU and registers, small, extremely fast, and it's in the heart of the processor built into it. Then you've got your cache also located on the processor, and these are extremely fast. Level 1 and level 2. Level 3 now is also being used in as commonplace, or becoming commonplace, in dual core processors. And then you've got your RAM. So the further away you move from the CPU, your RAM, of course, is not on the CPU. This is a bit bigger. It's still fast, but just not as fast as these two. And then you have your disk storage, such as hard drives, virtual RAM. You can have your USBs, your magnetic disks, we'll see in a moment, and all of that. But this is a bigger, it's less expensive, but it's not as fast. So cost per byte and access speed, the further away you get, bigger, slower, less expensive. The closer you get to the CPU and on the CPU, you get more expensive, faster and smaller.